You're a young child growing up in the 90s and the 80s and the 2000s, wherever point in time you've grown up. As a youth, you are experienced at a young age the romanticized image of pirates. The Pirate's Adventure, Treasure Island, the mystical timeless tale of lost pirate gold and an adventure in a race against time with other people who all want to go grab this treasure. And you are the adventurous youth who wants to get it first. And you meet one of the legendary pirates who was there with the golden age of piracy. He was there at the tail end. He met all the legends. This man's name is John Silver. And John Silver wants Captain Flint's treasure for himself. He thinks he deserves it because he was on that crew long ago. And now it's time he's come to collect. But wait, what if we could take this story into space? Treasure Planet! Yeah, it's Treasure Island, but we put it in space. How could you go wrong with that? This sounds like one of the most amazing and most interesting ideas ever, because it's pirates in space! How could you get it wrong? How could anybody think that this would be one of the worst films of all time? How could this be one of the worst flops of all time when it couldn't lose? I'll tell you exactly how it failed. It's because Disney didn't care about this movie. They didn't care about what John Musker and Ron Clements cared about. These guys wanted to make this movie for years. And then Disney said, no, make something else. Make what we want you to make. And so they make The Great Mouse Detective, and it did great. And then they did The Little Mermaid, and that one did great. And then they did Aladdin, and that did great. And so finally, after doing many hits, many successful hits, Disney is finally saying, alright, fine. After Hercules had come out, they're like, okay, you guys have some clout in the industry now, and you guys can obviously make bankable films. So we're gonna give you your pet project. We're gonna give you a little bit of a budget and let you make your Treasure Planet movie. And so Ron Clements and John Musker get together like they did with The Little Mermaid, The Great Mouse Detective, Aladdin, Hercules. They got together and they made movie magic yet again. This film was movie magic. It was a spell that would capture you. When you watched this in the theaters, you were spellbound. Your eyes were glued to the screen. You ignored the rumbling of your stomach. You would not eat a single piece of popcorn because you wouldn't want to miss a single word spoken. You wouldn't leave to get up to go to the bathroom. You would hold it to watch the entire film from front to credits. And then you would go to the bathroom. And then you would buy this on DVD later on, and you would watch it. And then you would watch it again, and then you would watch it again, and again, and again. There was just something so mesmerizing about the idea of an adventure with space pirates in space, and treasure on a treasure planet, a planet full of treasure, mystical maps, cosmology, star maps, and all that cool crap that just sounds like it couldn't lose. So how did this flop so badly? Probably it failed for many a reason, but one of those reasons that I can think of is because Disney didn't believe in this film from the start. They let this be a passion project of two of the greatest animation directors working today in their industry, and they just gave it to them. They just tossed it aside as some side project that they let them work on, their passion project. And as a result, since they never believed in this film to begin with, when it finally came out, they didn't really give it too much marketing money. Not many of the children knew about this film. Not many of the kids were interested in this film. Nobody cared. Probably because not as many people even knew it existed. So many other films had come out around this time period that it just got lost in the shuffle. Some amazing films, such as Spirited Away, was released in theaters. It even won an Academy Award for Best Animated Picture. An anime movie! won Best Animated Picture, but did you know that this was also nominated for that Academy Award that it lost to Spirited Away, even though I would say that it was righteously lost because Spirited Away is one of the greatest animated films of all time. Though, while this is just a remake of Treasure Island, but in space, it still remains one of the most visually appealing films and adventures that any small child could watch and become enraptured in. And even if you've seen it as a child, you could see it as an adult and still be reminded of that magic that you experienced as a child. Because I experience it every single time I look at this case. Treasure Planet is one of my favorite Disney films of all time. The simple romantic idea of joining a pirate crew that are actually a bunch of anti-heroes who just don't happen to believe in the judicial bureaucracy of the government and wish to go out there and take the world by its hands and risk and grasp the purest of all freedoms to do as they please and go where thou wilt, without anybody telling them no, without any toll booths or toll roads or lines in the sand or nations. They go where they please. They are free. And that was the most romanticized idea that drew me towards films like this, that drew me towards games like this. The simple idea of space pirates, this romanticized idea of going out into space and seeing so many different worlds and all the adventures. It's just the romanticized adventure genre, if that makes sense to you. The whole Indiana Jones thing, how did that film perform so well? It's a classic adventure story. It's encapsulated in its time period. It encapsulates a moment in time. It doesn't try to be anything it's not. Indiana Jones is an adventure film. Treasure Planet is an adventure film. It doesn't try to be anything. Rogue Galaxy, I'll talk about this in a minute. This might be a dual feature, or I might just be talking about this and saying how there's things that whatever. But it's just that idea of a romanticized adventure that you just don't see too often in films anymore. You see it in many of the Clements films. You see it in The Little Mermaid, you see it in Aladdin, you see it in Princess and the Frog, you see it in Moana. It's because Mr. Clements and Mr. Musker both worked on all of those films. That's why they are so memorable and lovely to you. It's because they did them. They worked on them. They did Hercules. They did The Great Mouse Detective. These guys knew their craft, and they made your childhood. This was their unsung black sheep that nobody remembers, but has become something of a cult hit, a cult classic, and one of my favorite animated films of all time. That is not to say that it's one of the best films of all time. Certainly not. It is not even close to one of the best films of all time. It's not even close to one of the best animations of all time, but I don't care. This is one of those unsung JRPGs that barely anybody remembers. Nobody remembers this game. Nobody played this game. Nobody's heard of this game. And yet it is one of the most memorable games that I have ever played. Why? Because it simply begins with a boy that a dream stuck in a life that he finds to be so incredibly mundane and boring. And then he is swept up off his feet into one of the most greatest adventures of his entire life. That is the romanticized tale of adventure. That was what started with Star Wars. We start with Luke Skywalker, a young boy in a mundane, humdrum, boring life that gets swept off his feet into one of the greatest adventures of his entire life. That idea, that trope in storytelling works for people because we're Luke, we're Jaster Rogue, we're this guy. We are those people. We are that guy living in that boring, humdrum tavern, making ends meet, barely getting by, with dreams and aspirations to sail away into some incredible adventure. And so that is why we get lost in these stories. That is why we get lost in these movies and these video games. Because the adventure is so appealing to us. We go off on an adventure, we go off on a quest, and we just leave this place for a little while. Just a little while. And for a little while, the world looks new again. The world looks shiny. It looks appealing and fantastic and mystical and magical. Suddenly there's new places to explore, old places to rediscover. Such wonders you could see through these adventure stories. That is why I would say that maybe you should give this film a shot if you haven't already. Treasure Planet is one of the greatest films, animated-wise, in my opinion, of all time. At least in that it captures that little sense of adventure. It captures that small part of that child in you, and it forces them to come back out. It forces them to come back out, and you get to go on one more adventure and feel like that child that wanted to sail the stars with his imagination. Just for a little while, at least. So what's Rogue Galaxy? Why the heck did I show this next to Treasure Planet? It's probably because Rogue Galaxy and Treasure Planet have a lot in common. This is kind of like Treasure Planet, the video game, right? And we've got such incredible voice actor talents. One of them that I remember his name, which is incredible for me. Steve Blum voices Segrimgart, who is one of the coolest characters. And this one's Jaster Rogue, the main character. Don't ask me to remember. Her name's Kisala. I remember that one too. Okay. So, they are all members of the pirate crew of Captain Dorgan Goa. Jaster Rogue begins his story on a small desert planet, much like the young Luke Skywalker. He finds that his little small humdrum town is attacked, and he has to fend off his home and his family and his friends from all sorts of creepies and crawlies. He is aided by a mysterious swordsman who gives him a mystical sword and says, "You have a destiny in the stars!" And so he meets with a robot man and a Scottish short man, and the two of them say, "You are the legendary swordsman bounty hunter, and you must join us. You must join our pirate crew." And he has no idea who that guy is, but he has taken on the bounty hunter's identity because he carries that sword from that legendary master. And so he gets recruited into the crew of Captain Dorgan Goa, and he finally has his ticket off of this planet. He finally gets to escape from his boring and humdrum life into a world of adventure. And it is magical indeed. Every world that this young boy explores and experiences, all of the new crew members that he gets to recruit and the friends he's made along the way, a wonderful, treacherous tale. Let's see, where did I see who made it? Was this level 5? Wasn't this level 5 who made this? You know, I wish they would show you the people who made the crap on the cover here. But no, they just say Sony here. Sony owns it, but I think it was level 5. You can't quote me on that, but I think it might be in this. It might be in this. Let's see, look at the back here. No, well, I don't want to waste too much time on this, but hey, I have the pause button. You see, I did have the pause button, and I had to pause for a few minutes to find and confirm that it was level 5 that published this, that made this game. And it was published by Sony Computer Entertainment in 2007. All that specific information can be found by using the Big G search bar. Now, this game is gameplay style. It is a JRPG. Perhaps you've heard of those. The JRPG, and this one is not a turn-based one. This is an action role-playing game. You get to slash your swords. You get to kick your opponents. You get to shoot your guns. And you get to have a whale of fun doing it. You explore all sorts of worlds, from pirate worlds of the jungles, and then the big city worlds, to an old mining fringe world, to an ocean vacation planet. There's so much stuff to enjoy. There's so many things to see, so many places to go. And of course, there's fast travels. You can go anywhere you've been at any time. It's fantastic. Rogue Galaxy is probably an exclusive to the PS2, but I think I found it on the PSN at one point. It might even be on the PS4 PSN at some point. It might even be on Steam if you take a look. I'll probably pause and take a look right now. It's as I thought. It's not on Steam. It is a PS2 exclusive, but it has been brought over onto the PlayStation Network for the PS3 and the PS4. So if you are one of those modern people who have a PlayStation 4, you can go onto your handy-dandy PlayStation Network and find this beloved gem for $14.99. It's a good price, too, because I paid $20 for this one. Adventure stories don't come around all that often. I find that they are so very rare anymore. We don't get movies like The Goonies anymore. I don't know why. They are so fantastic. They are some of the greatest modems for storytelling that capture the child in everybody, that they can take you off onto an adventure and you get to have a whole lot of fun. I don't understand why they don't make those as often anymore. Why? What's so wrong with the Goonies? What's so wrong with making a film that it captures that? Or making a game that captures that. And they make games that capture that far more often than they make movies. You see, the JRPG genre, the platformer kings, like the Uncharted super shooter platformer games, those games and capture that sense of adventure just fine. Adventure in video games is far more often seen than adventure in films. Why? I don't know. I wish it would come back. I want to be able to be around in an era where we get to see the reintroduction of things like, not things that are, but things that are like Indiana Jones, The Goonies. I don't want to see a Goonies remake. I don't want to see a fifth Indiana Jones movie. I want to see the next Indiana Jones, the next Goonies, original stories that take you on fantastic adventures, even if you just have to modify it just a little bit, because this is basically just Treasure Planet, but in a different format. And Treasure Planet is just Treasure Island in space. But hey, they actually tried to make it interesting and unique and different, and that's what makes these great. This is one of my favorite games of all time, just like Treasure Planet is one of my favorite films of all time, because I just love the idea of sky pirates and space pirates, and it's just fantastic. It brings out the child in you. Be imaginative, everybody.